I never thought I'd be in this situation, but here I am, pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet. I'm Monica, 28F, and I just found out I'm pregnant. The father is my boyfriend, Sebastian, 30M, whom I've been dating for 2 years. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party, and things just clicked. He was charming, funny, and seemed to genuinely care about me. I thought I had finally found someone who would support and protect me after my difficult childhood. Growing up, my parents were emotionally abusive. My father, a high-strung accountant, constantly criticized my every move. He'd nitpick my grades, my appearance, even the way I laughed. My mother, a former beauty queen turned housewife, was no better. She'd compare me unfavorably to my cousins or the daughters of her friends, always finding me lacking. They controlled every aspect of my life, what I wore, who I talked to, what activities I could participate in. I wasn't allowed to have a cell phone until I was 17, and even then, they monitored all my calls and texts. I remember one particular incident when I was 16. I had been invited to my first high school party. I was so excited, but when I asked my parents for permission, they exploded. My father called me irresponsible and naive, saying I'd probably end up pregnant or addicted to drugs if I went. My mother chimed in, telling me that girls like me shouldn't go to parties if we wanted to keep a good reputation. I cried myself to sleep that night, feeling like a prisoner in my own home. The day I turned 18, I left. I had been secretly saving money from babysitting jobs and tutoring younger students. I packed a backpack with some clothes and my most treasured possessions, a journal my grandmother had given me before she passed away, and a small stuffed elephant I had since childhood. I left a note telling my parents not to look for me and walked out the door with nothing but dreams of a better life. Those first few years were incredibly tough. I couch surfed with friends from high school for a while, picking up whatever odd jobs I could find. I worked as a barista, a dog walker, a nighttime office cleaner, anything to make ends meet. Eventually, I managed to save enough to rent a tiny studio apartment. It was in a sketchy part of town, and I could hear my neighbors arguing through the thin walls every night, but it was mine. During this time, I also put myself through community college. I'd always loved art, so I decided to study graphic design. I'd attend classes during the day and work nights and weekends. There were many times when I thought about giving up, when the stress of juggling work and school became overwhelming. But the thought of having to go back to my parents kept me going. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a small marketing firm. It wasn't glamorous work, mostly designing flyers for local businesses and the occasional logo, but it was a start. I worked hard, often staying late to improve my skills or take on extra projects. Slowly but surely, I started to build a life for myself. That's when I met Sebastian. It was at our mutual friend Sarah's 30th birthday party. I almost didn't go. I was exhausted from a long week at work and the thought of socializing was daunting. But Sarah had been one of the few friends who stood by me when I left home, so I dragged myself to the party. Sebastian was Sarah's cousin, in town for a few weeks on business. He walked into the party fashionably late, all easy smiles and effortless charm. We ended up talking for hours that night. He listened intently as I shared some of my story, and he seemed genuinely impressed by how I built my life from scratch. When he asked for my number at the end of the night, I felt a flutter of excitement I hadn't experienced in years. Our relationship progressed quickly after that. Sebastian extended his stay in town, and we spent nearly every free moment together. He was attentive and caring, always asking about my day and remembering little details about things I liked. When he had to return to his home city, we decided to try long distance. We'd talk every night, and he'd fly in to see me every other weekend. 6 months into our relationship, Sebastian got a job offer in my city. He said he'd been looking for an opportunity to move closer to me. I was over the moon. Here was a man who was willing to uproot his life just to be with me. We moved in together shortly after he relocated. Living with Sebastian was like a dream come true. He was neat and considerate, always helping with household chores without being asked. He encouraged me to pursue my passion projects in graphic design, even setting up a small studio space for me in our apartment. For the first time in my life, I felt truly safe and loved. That's why today's events have left me reeling. I took a pregnancy test this morning after feeling nauseous for a week. When it came back positive, I was shocked but excited. Sebastian and I had talked about having kids someday, though we hadn't planned on it happening so soon. I couldn't wait to tell him. Sebastian came home from work, and I blurted out the news. At first, he seemed happy, hugging me tightly. But then he said, "We need to tell my mom right away." I froze. Sebastian's mother, Amanda, 55F, has always made me uncomfortable. She's overbearing and constantly interferes in our relationship. From the moment Sebastian introduced us, Amanda has treated me with thinly veiled disdain. She'd make backhanded compliments about my appearance or my job, always with a sweet smile that never reached her eyes. Once, she accidentally spilled red wine on the white blouse Sebastian had bought me for my birthday. Another time, she rearranged our entire apartment while we were out, claiming she was just trying to help make it more presentable. I tried to set boundaries with Amanda, but Sebastian always brushes off my concerns, saying she's just being caring. He doesn't see how her behavior affects me, how it reminds me of the controlling environment I grew up in. I asked Sebastian if we could wait a bit before telling anyone about the pregnancy, but he insisted his mother had to know immediately. Before I could protest further, Sebastian was on the phone with Amanda. 30 minutes later, she barged into our apartment without warning. I was still in my pajamas, feeling overwhelmed and unprepared. Amanda barely acknowledged me, instead turning to Sebastian and demanding, "Is it true? Is she really pregnant?" Sebastian nodded, and Amanda's face twisted into a mixture of emotions I couldn't decipher. She turned to me and said, "Well, I hope you're prepared for a paternity test. We can't be too careful these days." I felt like I had been slapped. I looked at Sebastian, expecting him to defend me, to tell his mother how inappropriate her comment was. But he just stood there, staring at the floor. I couldn't believe it. I've never been unfaithful, and Sebastian knows this. Why wasn't he saying anything? Amanda continued, her voice tripping with fake sweetness, "Don't worry, dear. I have connections at the best clinics. We'll get this sorted out quickly. Sebastian, you'll need to take time off work to accompany her to all the appointments. We can't have any mistakes." I felt like I was drowning. This woman was taking control of my pregnancy, my body, my life. And Sebastian was letting her. I managed to stammer out that I needed some time to process everything. Amanda scoffed, "There's nothing to process. We're doing this my way." Sebastian finally spoke up, but not to defend me. He said, "Mom's right, Monica. We need to be sure about everything. It's for the best." I couldn't take it anymore. I locked myself in the bathroom and cried for hours. I feel so alone and scared. I thought Sebastian was different from my parents, but he's just another person who won't protect me. I don't know what to do. I can't imagine raising a child in this environment, with Amanda controlling everything and Sebastian being her puppet. I'm considering leaving, but I'm terrified. I've worked hard to build my career, but I don't know if I can support myself and a baby on my own. Plus, I'm afraid of what Sebastian and Amanda might do if I try to leave. They have more money and connections than I do. I feel trapped and hopeless. I thought I had finally found happiness, but now it feels like my world is crumbling around me. I don't know if I even want this baby anymore. The thought of being tied to Sebastian and Amanda for the rest of my life makes me feel sick. I need advice. Should I try to talk to Sebastian again? Should I just leave and figure things out on my own? I'm lost and scared, and I don't know where to turn. Any guidance would be appreciated. Update when it's been 2 weeks since my last post, and so much has happened. I want to thank everyone who offered advice and support. Your words gave me the strength to take action. The day after I posted, I decided to confront Sebastian. I spent hours rehearsing what I wanted to say, trying to find the right words to express how hurt and betrayed I felt. I waited until he came home from work and asked to talk. We sat down at our kitchen table, the same place where we'd shared so many happy meals and conversations. Now, it felt like a barrier between us. I took a deep breath and started talking. I told Sebastian how hurt and betrayed I felt by his lack of support when his mother demanded a paternity test. I explained that her behavior was controlling and disrespectful, and that I needed him to set boundaries with her. I reminded him of the stories I'd shared about my childhood, how I'd promised myself I'd never let anyone make me feel small again. As I spoke, I could see Sebastian's expression changing. At first, he looked defensive, but as I continued, his face softened. For a moment, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe he was finally understanding. Maybe we could work through this together. But then Sebastian spoke, and my hope shattered. He said, "Monica, you're overreacting. Mom is just looking out for us. She's even offering to pay for all the medical expenses. You should be grateful." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked him, "Do you really think I've been unfaithful? Don't you trust me at all?" Sebastian hesitated before answering, "It's not that I don't trust you. It's just, well, accidents happen. We need to be sure." That's when I knew. This wasn't just about the pregnancy or the paternity test. This was about our entire relationship. I realized that Sebastian had never really trusted me, never really seen me as an equal partner. I was just someone to be controlled and managed, just like his mother wanted. As this realization washed over me, I felt a strange sense of calm. It was like all the anxiety and uncertainty of the past few days suddenly crystallized into a clear path forward. I took a deep breath and said, "Sebastian, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. His face turned red with anger. "You can't leave. What about the baby? What about our life together?" I stood my ground. "There is no our life if you can't trust and respect me. I deserve better than this, and so does this baby." I had already packed a bag while he was at work, anticipating that this conversation might not go well. I grabbed it from where I'd hidden it in the closet and headed for the door. Sebastian tried to block my way, saying, "You can't just leave. Where will you go? You need me." But I was done being controlled. I pushed past him and walked out of the apartment. As I closed the door behind me, I heard Sebastian calling my name, but I didn't look back. I had taken the advice of many commenters and reached out to a local women's shelter. They had a spot for me and were expecting me. As I got into a taxi and gave the driver the address, I felt a mixture of fear and relief wash over me. The next few days were a blur. The shelter provided me with resources and support I never knew existed. They helped me file a restraining order against Sebastian and Amanda, who had been bombarding me with calls and texts. Some of the messages from Amanda were particularly nasty, calling me all sorts of horrible names and threatening to ruin my life if I didn't come back. Reading those messages brought back painful memories of my mother's emotional abuse. But this time, instead of feeling small and powerless, I felt angry. Angry at Amanda for trying to control me, angry at Sebastian for not standing up for me, and angry at myself for letting it get this far. But that anger fueled my determination to build a better life for myself and my baby. The shelter also connected me with a counselor who specialized in helping women leave abusive relationships. In our first session, I broke down crying as I recounted my childhood and how I thought I'd escaped that kind of control when I met Sebastian. The counselor listened patiently, offering tissues and gentle encouragement. She helped me see that my instincts were right, that I wasn't overreacting, and that I had the strength to get through this. One of the hardest parts was dealing with work. I knew I couldn't just disappear without explanation, but I was terrified of Sebastian or Amanda showing up at my office. With the help of the shelter staff, I crafted an email to my boss explaining that I was dealing with a personal emergency and needed to work remotely for a while. To my surprise, she was incredibly understanding. She assured me that my job was secure and that I could take the time I needed to sort things out. This support from my boss was a huge relief. It meant I could start looking for a new place to live without worrying about losing my job. The shelter helped me create a budget and start saving for a security deposit on an apartment. It wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time, I felt like I had a plan. In the midst of all this, I also made an appointment with an OB/GYN recommended by the shelter. The doctor confirmed that I was indeed pregnant, about 8 weeks along. She provided me with information about all my options, including abortion, adoption, and keeping the baby. As she talked, I found myself instinctively placing a hand on my stomach. Despite everything that had happened, I realized I already felt a connection to this tiny life growing inside me. The doctor must have noticed my gesture because she paused and said gently, "Remember, there's no rush to make a decision. Take the time you need to figure out what's best for you." Her words were comforting. For the first time since finding out about the pregnancy, I felt like I had control over the situation. I didn't have to let Sebastian or Amanda dictate what happened to my body or my baby. As I left the doctor's office, I felt a mix of emotions, fear, uncertainty, but also a glimmer of hope. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to create a life for myself, and possibly this baby, that was free from control and manipulation. I'm still scared about the future, but for the first time in weeks, I feel like I can breathe. I'm taking things one day at a time, focusing on my health and well-being. I'm rediscovering the strength that helped me leave my parents' house all those years ago. I know it won't be easy, but I'm ready to face whatever comes next. Thank you all again for your support. It truly made a difference in giving me the courage to leave. I'll update again when I have more news. Update 2: It's been a month since my last update, and I wanted to share what's been happening. First of all, thank you again to everyone who has offered support and advice. It means more than you know. I've been staying at a small apartment that the women's shelter helped me find. It's not much, just a studio with a kitchenette and a tiny bathroom, but it's safe and it's mine. The walls are a bit thin, and I can hear my neighbor's TV most evenings, but after everything I've been through, it feels like a sanctuary. I've started to make it feel like home, hanging up some of my own artwork and adding a few plants. There's something empowering about creating a space that's entirely my own. I've been working remotely, which has been a blessing as I deal with morning sickness and the stress of everything that's happened. My boss has been incredibly understanding, even offering me some additional freelance work to help boost my income. I'm grateful for her support, but I can't help worrying about what will happen when I eventually need to take maternity leave. Sebastian hasn't given up trying to contact me. He's left voicemails alternating between apologies and accusations. One day he's begging me to come back, saying he'll set boundaries with his mother. The next, he's threatening to take me to court for full custody of the baby. It's emotionally exhausting, but I've been saving all these messages as evidence, just in case. The shelter put me in touch with a lawyer who specializes in domestic cases, and she's been advising me on how to handle the situation. Amanda, on the other hand, has escalated her harassment. She somehow found out where I work and contacted my boss, trying to get me fired. She claimed I was unstable and unfit for my job. I was terrified when my boss called me into a video meeting, thinking this was it, I was going to lose everything. But to my relief, my boss didn't buy Amanda's lies. She assured me that my job was secure and that she'd be documenting all of Amanda's attempts to interfere with my employment. Her support brought me to tears, happy ones, for a change. The biggest development is that I've decided to keep the baby. It wasn't an easy decision, but after a lot of thought and conversations with a counselor at the women's shelter, I realized that I want this child. I know it will be hard as a single mother, but I'm determined to provide a loving, stable home, something I never had growing up. I had my first ultrasound last week. As I lay on the examination table, I felt a mixture of excitement and fear. When the technician turned the screen towards me, I saw that tiny heartbeat flickering. Everything suddenly felt real in a way it hadn't before. I'm scared, but also excited about this new chapter in my life. I've also started looking for a new job. As supportive as my current boss has been, I feel like I need a fresh start. I've been applying for remote graphic design positions that would allow me more flexibility once the baby arrives. It's daunting to think about changing jobs while pregnant, but I'm trying to stay positive. Sebastian found out about my decision to keep the baby. I suspect Amanda might have a friend at the clinic who leaked the information. He's now insisting on being involved in the pregnancy and demanding visitation rights once the baby is born. I've told him that all communication needs to go through my lawyer from now on. It's hard, because part of me still cares for him and wishes things could have been different. But I know I need to stay strong for myself and my baby. Speaking of lawyers, I've hired one to help me navigate the custody issues that are likely to come up. She's been amazing, helping me understand my rights and preparing for whatever Sebastian and Amanda might try next. It's expensive, but I'm trying to see it as an investment in our future. I've also started attending a support group for single mothers at the local community center. It's been incredibly helpful to connect with other women who understand what I'm going through. We share advice, encouragement, and sometimes just a shoulder to cry on. Last week, one of the women brought in some baby clothes her child had outgrown and offered them to me. The kindness of these strangers turned friends has been overwhelming. As my pregnancy progresses, I'm trying to focus on the positive. I've started a journal for the baby, writing down my thoughts and feelings as I prepare for their arrival. I want them to know how much they're loved, right from the start. I'm taking things day by day, trying to stay positive and focus on creating a good life for myself and my baby. It's not easy, but I'm stronger than I ever knew. Thank you all for being a part of this journey with me. I'll update again when there's more to share. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I'm now 6 months pregnant. So much has changed, and I wanted to share it with you all. First, the good news, I found a new job. It's a remote position with a startup company that values work-life balance. The pay is better than my old job, and they're even offering maternity leave, which is a huge relief. I started 2 months ago and so far, it's been great. My colleagues are supportive, and the work is challenging in a good way. I feel like I'm growing professionally even as I prepare for motherhood. I've also moved into a small house that I'm renting. It's in a quiet neighborhood with a little backyard. The landlord is an older woman who, after hearing a bit of my story, has been incredibly kind. She even helped me set up some baby furniture that arrived in boxes. I've been slowly furnishing the place and setting up a nursery. It feels good to have a space that's truly mine, where I feel safe and at peace. Now for the not-so-good news, Sebastian and Amanda haven't given up. Sebastian filed for joint custody, claiming that I'm keeping him from his child. We had our first court hearing last month. It was nerve-wracking to be in the same room as Sebastian and Amanda again. Amanda glared at me the whole time, while Sebastian kept trying to catch my eye. I focused on staying calm and letting my lawyer do the talking. My lawyer presented evidence of Sebastian's emotional manipulation and Amanda's harassment. The judge seemed sympathetic to my situation but emphasized the importance of both parents being involved in a child's life. For now, the judge has ordered that Sebastian can attend doctor's appointments and birthing classes if I'm comfortable with it, but he's not allowed to contact me directly. All communication must go through our lawyers. Amanda has been barred from any involvement due to her harassment. Sebastian attended the last ultrasound appointment. It was awkward and tense, but he behaved himself. Seeing our baby on the screen seemed to have an impact on him. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the man I thought I knew. After the appointment, Sebastian asked to talk. He apologized for his behavior and for not standing up to his mother. He said he's been going to counseling to work on setting boundaries with Amanda and understanding why he let her control our relationship. He asked if we could try to co-parent amicably. I told him I appreciated his apology, but that trust takes time to rebuild. I agreed to consider co-parenting, but made it clear that we would not be getting back together romantically. He seemed to accept this, which was a relief. As for Amanda, she's been quiet lately. Too quiet, if I'm honest. I can't help but feel like she's planning something, but I'm trying not to let paranoia take over. I'm focusing on staying healthy and preparing for the baby's arrival. I've also been attending a support group for single mothers. It's been incredibly helpful to connect with other women who understand what I'm going through. We share advice, encouragement, and sometimes just a shoulder to cry on. Last week, we had a small baby shower for me. It wasn't anything fancy, just some cupcakes and small gifts, but it meant the world to me. Looking back on everything that's happened, I'm amazed at how much I've grown. I'm no longer the scared, uncertain woman I was 6 months ago. I'm stronger, more confident, and ready to be the mother my child deserves. Thank you all for being part of this journey with me. Your support has meant the world. I'll update again after the baby is born. Wish me luck.